Hello, it's Dr. Sarah Andreas. Today I wanted to talk to you about the transition that you may be experiencing if you're now leading from home. A lot of us have been thrown into an environment that we're not used to, right? So you're used to getting up at a certain time, eating breakfast, taking a shower, driving to work, getting out of your car, going into work and talking to some people, doing your work stuff, and then going out the door, driving home, and having your home life. Maybe you did a little bit of work at home, but you did not work from home, right? So there's this big transition, and if you're a leader, I think it's even more of a transition, because the question may be, how do I lead these people that I'm no longer seeing every day? So I'm going to share with you 5 tips that I think can really help you. The first one, I believe you need to find some type of software that's either a team-based software or a project-based software, and that depends on the type of work that you guys are doing from home. But 2 of them that I am very familiar with, but there are tons out there. I've used Microsoft's Teams, and I've also used Google Basecamp. The things that I think are important are to-do and task tracking, and the communication piece and sharing of files. If you think that this is going to just be temporary and after the COVID-19 crisis is gone, you guys are going to go all back to working in an office, then pick one that's really simple to use, but that gives you kind of that communication board. Because if you think about it, in your offices, there's a good chance that you had boards somewhere that showed how you were doing, either on a project or on sales or things like that. So find that board through technology now. And whatever you use, just make sure it's easy to use. And I would do it as cost effective as possible, since this is not going to go on for a long time. And that gives you a way to have like a centralized hub of where you're communicating and what you're working on. All right, number 2, and these aren't in any like particular order that you have to do them in this order. These are just the order I wrote them down in. There's a transition. When you're work at home versus when you were working in an office. And here's what I think the transition is. There's been studies and they show that people who are working from home are more productive because they don't get all the interruptions, right? So now you have this idea that you, as the leader, kind of need to wrap your head around. Is it hours worked or is it work produced? And what I mean by that is, now that somebody is not getting all those other interruptions from their coworkers and from vendors and whatever else is going on in the office normally, they are going to be able to produce more work, right? The same amount of work that it may have taken them 2 days to produce in the office might now just take a day and a half. So is there the expectation, and you as the leader need to figure this out, is there the expectation that they're now expected to work their same amount of hours even though they're producing more work? Or are you thinking, hey, I'm going to just really focus on the work they're producing and not worry about how many hours they're putting in? So that's a question that you need to figure out and think about. And the people who are working from home, I would guess that you picked the people who you thought were the most productive inside of your organization anyway. So the idea of focusing on work produced versus hours worked might be a good one for you. All right, number 3, agreement on time available. So because you're in this different work zone and people are working from home and probably working from home with spouses and children and other things that are going on that they're not used to working with, you might want to negotiate and have a clear agreement on hours worked. So maybe there is someone who works for you now who's working at home who has small children, and the person might not even think to tell you this, so you should have this conversation. Hey, I have little kids, so I can work from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. when they get up. Then I need to take a break for a little bit and get them all organized and situated. But then I can work again from 1 until 4 or 1 until 3 as they're napping. And then I need to get them situated again. And then when my spouse gets home or my significant other, I can work from 6 to 9, right? So they got lots of flexibility for when they can produce work for you. But if you, in your mind as the leader, are thinking, oh, they're going to work 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. just like they've always done, and their lunch is going to be from 1 to 2, there has to be clear communication about what's expected. Or both of you are going to be frustrated by the other person, right? So just as the leader, you should be having those kind of conversations with your people. All right, number 4. You have to be, as a leader, more intentional about your connection, right? So you need to make sure that you have a scheduled time for a weekly meeting, and your weekly meeting may be via Zoom or some other type of a video conferencing, or it might be over the phone. Whatever you choose, it's just important to have those weekly phone calls to make sure that everybody's on track. And nobody chose to work from home in this situation, right? It was kind of forced on everyone. So it makes your communication even more important as the leader, because all of a sudden your employees who were used to going to work and were used to having that routine and that type of life are not having that right now. So there's no normal for them. And by you having a weekly meeting that's on Mondays at 10 o'clock, every Monday at 10 o'clock until this is over, it gives them some stability and some normalcy to their schedule. And it helps with communication across the board. The second thing is, and I talk about this all the time, is you need to schedule one-on-ones with your people. I think right now is even more important than in normal business going on. One-on-ones give you a chance to understand what is going on in that person's life. How do they need you to support them? Because you're their leader. You should have all the answers, right? You should have it kind of figured out of what's going to happen when. And by you offering them that time, you're giving them an opportunity to talk to somebody verbally. There's something about communication that is verbal and facial that really helps people just feel calmer and a little bit more in touch and connected. So make sure that you're doing your one-on-ones consistently with the people on your team. It will help them. All right, number 5. And I think this might be the most important, both for you as the leader and for the people that you're trying to lead through this time, is self-care. I've been coaching a lot of people lately who talk about self-care and tell me, I get focused on work because there's nothing else to do, and I forget to eat, and I forget, or I don't get up and go to the bathroom when I need to, so I end up with a bladder infection. Because work is a stable, something that I'm used to doing, and I push all that other stuff away. Right now, it's so important for people to practice self-care. It's so important for you as the leader to practice self-care. And I think it'll take you more discipline now than it used to, right? Because it used to just be you plugged it in those free times. Well, now there's this pressure that, hey, I need to be successful at work. Even though we're not working at work, I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. I want to make sure that my boss is happy. I want to make sure that we're making a difference, that we're doing what we can. And for some reason, and I don't know what the reason is. I wish I did. If I knew, I would tell you guys. For some reason, there's just this ignoring your basic self-care. So here's some suggestions. Number 1, take a walk on purpose, right? So when it gets to be about the normal time you would go to lunch, get up, and maybe it's walk up and down your block, maybe it's walk up and down your street, maybe it's just walk around your backyard 5 times, whatever it is, get up and move. Because there's this no need to walk further than 10 feet to the bathroom, or no need to walk further than maybe 20 feet to the kitchen, you're not getting the same amount of exercise you would have normally gotten throughout your workday. So make sure that you're getting up and you're moving some. Number 2, take time to connect with people. And it can be through video conferencing, it can be through phone calls, it can be through texts and emails, but connect with people. One of the things that you might be missing is that human connection. So make sure that you're taking the time to do that. Also, once you've negotiated with your leader, or as the leader, you know what times you're going to be available for your team members, make sure that you communicate that and stick to it as much as possible. That means that if you say, hey, I'm going to start work at 9 o'clock, and for me, I can do that. I have an 18-year-old, so that wouldn't be a problem. So if I'm going to start work at 9 o'clock and I'm going to end at 5, I need to make sure that I'm pretty close to doing that every single day. That gives me a routine, that gives me a structure. If there's a spot in your house that you can set up that's your office, even if it's not your office, for years, I worked in this teeny tiny, it was about 3 by 5 cubby hole in our bedroom, and that was my office, but that was my space. That was where my stuff was, and that was where my work happened. And then when work time is over, leave that space and don't go back there until the next day when it's time to work again. So as you're processing through this as the leader and you're like, oh my gosh, those are such great suggestions, I'm going to do them all, or oh my gosh, those didn't help me at all. What I want you to focus on is you. Focus on you, focus on your team, focus on how do we keep ourselves organized and connected as we go through this. So that way at the end of it, when we are able to work in the same office again, we're not complete strangers who don't know what everybody else is working on. If this is an area that you feel like you need help on, I do offer coaching as part of my practice. I have coaching, consulting, and training all around leadership and leadership development. So if this is an area where you feel as a leader you are stuck, feel free to use my coaching services and help yourself transition as you're going through this.